Okay, so Indeed has teamed up with the Olympic Federation to launch the Indeed Career Coach Program, which is aiming to help athletes plan for life beyond sport. The program has been developed with the support of the Olympic Federation of Ireland, the Sport Ireland Institute, and High Performance Director of the IABA, Bernard Dunne, who you can see on screen right now. Bernard, how are you getting on?
I'm great. How are you keeping?
Very well, thanks. So talk to us about this program. How do you become a career coach? What is the Indeed Career Coach, and what outlets are you hoping to provide to athletes?
Well, I suppose it's not about becoming a career coach. It's about giving, helping our athletes develop the tools that will help them transition from being solely an athlete to being somebody who's engaged, I suppose, in the workplace and who's functional, I suppose, in the non-sporting world. How it initially would have came about was my own transition from sport into, let's say, the second life. I boxed from the age of 5 until the age of 30, and really that's all I ever did. And I suppose I solely identified as Bernard Dunne, the boxer. I think the general public would have identified me as Bernard Dunne, the boxer. And that's a great thing, and I'm proud of that. But that can also, put shackles on how you develop yourself then after you've left sport, because it can leave a very big void when you've stepped away. I used to know what I was doing 24/7, 365 when I was an athlete. You're very focused, you're very planned, and you're single-minded in your pursuit of trying to achieve excellence in your sport. When that's gone, and that regime is gone, that structure around what you're doing is gone, you can feel lost. And I suppose initially when I retired from sport, and it was my choice to retire, often athletes can, forced to retire through injury or just through no fault of their own. And that brings other challenges. But when I retired, it was great. I was enjoying life. I didn't have to watch my weight. I didn't have to, be careful around, staying up late. I was able to do what I wanted when I wanted. But that wore off very quickly after about 2 months, and it became, okay, what else am I going to do with myself? And it was only then that I started to think that I had no other value, or I had nothing else that I could contribute to the world. And that was a strange feeling to have. And I actually came very close to going back to fighting. I thought I'd left behind the one thing I could actually do in life, and the one skill that I actually had. I had that conversation with my wife, with my dad, and I never went back boxing, so that could tell you what they thought about the whole conversation. But it was a great conversation to have, because it made me realize that I needed to give myself an opportunity to feel and see what other things were like. And that comes from trying things. That comes from putting yourself out there and not being afraid to fail, really. It's a fear of failure, a fear of being exposed at something, because you've left behind something that you excelled at. Now all of a sudden you're going to something new and something different. And what career coaches around is actually helping them in that transition whilst they're already an athlete. So helping them realize that some of the skills and tools that they have are so relative to the working life, to the second life, if you will. And that's what I call it. It's the second life, because sport only lasts for a short period of time. And you got to realize and prepare for the next life.
What sort of things did you try after retirement? Did you say that you tried a lot of things and maybe some things didn't go so well? What's the weirdest thing you tried perhaps after your professional career?
Jesus. Actually, picking up the Irish language was probably one of them.
Right.
I failed Irish in school. I'd speak the language every day now. I raised my kids through the language, but it would have been one of the strangest things I would have went after. Writing a TV show, never thought I'd write one of those. Working with the Dublin football team, and now high performance director of our #1 Olympic sport. our most successful sport. Did I see myself doing this when I retired over 10 years ago? No, I didn't. And I actually deliberately took a complete break from boxing because I had done it for 25 years. You're legally allowed to participate from the age of 11. But I was I was in the gym from the age of 5. So I had a bit of a head start on most of their athletes when I got to the age of 11 because my dad was my coach. But come here, the one thing I would say was getting out there and giving myself the opportunity to see if I wanted to do something was the most important thing. And not having that fear of doing something. I remember, I was actually just telling the story earlier on to Amy. I remember sitting outside college for the very first time when I retired from boxing. And I was going into college and I was parked the car and I was thinking, what am I doing? Are you crazy going in here? People are going to be looking at you and thinking, that's Bernard Dunne, the boxer. What's he doing in here? And I felt like I didn't belong. And I actually started the car and put it into reverse. And I was about to go home and just something told me, you know what, give it an opportunity, give it a chance. You'll find out one of two things when you do that. One is, you like it and you want to do it. Or two is, I don't like it, I don't want to do it. But you have to give yourself that opportunity. And that, I suppose, that's the biggest message to give to anybody who goes through that transition and is struggling, is to give yourself that opportunity to try something different and to be something different.
What do you think inspired you to not put the car into reverse at that moment?
Oh. I knew it was the right thing to do. I knew I needed to challenge myself. I didn't have a challenge in my life at that stage. I knew I needed something to stimulate my brain, to give me some structure, and to give me a new direction. So I knew it was the right thing to do.
And it's never a bad decision.
But there was something inside me saying, don't do it. That second little, that little voice that we all have in our head that tells us not to do something for fear of being exposed or being put into something that you're uncomfortable with. I got comfortable with that uncomfortableness, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the really interesting thing when you talk about this program and how we talk about athletes who are either performing at the top of their game on an amateur level or are professional athletes, that most of us can't understand how someone like you, for example, can possibly sit in that car and not want to go into college, which so many people would see as a much simpler task than winning a world title, for example. It is, by fact, a much simpler task. You would probably make that point. How do you actually manage to communicate that to people then, that actually you do need to change how you're viewing these things, that the challenge of, say, academics could be a much bigger challenge for certain people than the actual actions of being an elite athlete on a day-to-day basis?
But if you look at what athletes and any sport, and this is across any sport, you look at what they do in their daily lives, it's so transferable to education, to the working life. The ability to work as part of a team, the ability to work on your own, the ability to take instructions, the ability to create a plan, implement a plan, and then review the plan. All these things are something that are carried out on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis when you're an athlete performing and competing at the highest level. So all these things are so transferable across into the working world. And also you look at just general, clubs, they're teaching kids discipline, respect, and again, the ability to work as part of a team and on your own, the ability to take instruction, the ability to listen. All these, like, sport is so valuable in educating kids and giving them skills that are good for going to school and are good for going into the workplace.
And this is a conversation we've actually been having on the show quite a bit over the last few weeks. We've been talking about the future of sport in Ireland and how important physical education is. And it's that exact point, that it isn't just about how many medals are you going to win if you're cultivated in the right way. It is about what sort of values are you actually going to learn for life? What sort of habits can you pick up as a child that will stick to you for life?
Yeah, but we're not just, what we don't want to just do within our program is create athletes, and then when they finish their career, that's it, we cut them off. What we want to do is create functioning people, people who have a future, people who can go in and value themselves in any environment that they put themselves in. And whether that's through doing, online courses, whether that's through having lecturers come in, whether that's through attending a college or getting work experience, we want to help our athletes develop and grow as people.
When you went into the Dublin setup, did they have this sort of thing nailed? Because this is the thing that we often hear about the Dublin campus, that Jim Gavin certainly really pushed this idea that you had to have your family life and your professional life. They were really important for you to succeed as a Dublin footballer. Did that strike you immediately when you went in with that camp?
Jim, I haven't worked with him for 7 years with the senior squad. It was an evolving process, and Jim put his mark on it over time with the team that he had around him. He had valuable supports, and he placed great importance and value on those supports. He allowed them to do their own job, and he had trust in the experts he had around him. I think the GAA as a whole generally tend to do that in terms of sport, college, work, and being able to combine. And there is a place for all three to work side by side, even in a high performance environment like this. Give it that there is moments in sport where it does become very intense, and people think that having to study a course online or whatnot is a distraction for the worse. But actually, it helps occupy the mind. It stops you actually burning yourself out and overthinking your sport. And it helps you develop skills separately from whether it's boxing or GAA or soccer. It helps you develop skills that you wouldn't normally develop because you'd be solely focused on your sport. And those skills may actually benefit your sport.
This isn't then about necessarily removing the tunnel vision. It's about complementing that tunnel vision is kind of what I'm getting.
100%. It's about getting a balance. It's about getting a balance. Ultimately, athletes want to achieve success, but it's getting them to think more about the process that backs that success up. And that process is the important piece. And if we can stop them focusing on just looking at winning gold medals and actually start again to look at the process and what can help build that success, I think that would be vitally important to athletes going forward in terms of creating that success.
And that's a really interesting point to pick up on when we talk about your role as high performance director at Irish Boxing. This obsession that everybody outside of the high performance unit has with medals. I presume inside that, of course, is an amazing end product, but it can't be your goal day to day.
No, we don't speak around medals here. We speak around, we speak about the process. We speak around what we're going after, where our focus is at. Like, our focus isn't on winning gold medals. That's a product of what we do. On a daily basis, we look to improve. We control what we can control in this environment. I know we're going through a terrible time for everybody, and we're in a very privileged position that we're able to still train, we're able to still compete, and they're the piece that we can control. We can control how we prepare and how we get ready, and where our mindset is at, what we focus on. They're things that we can't control, and we work on those on a daily basis.
Was that a culture shift when you came in, or was that already there before you took up the role of director?
It was, it's different. Yeah, it's different. We had, I suppose, a bit of a disjointed system when I come in. We had the fallout from Rio and all that came along with that. And then we had a review and we agreed a way forward. And this is where we are now. It's still an evolving process. I suppose my view is looking out towards 2028 and actually how we can actually look further down the pathway and impact on those athletes with this career coach program. And actually, at a younger age group, it's a lot more easier to develop that culture of not solely focusing on your sport. We're actually realizing that having outlets helps you actually perform better. Having other facets to your life.
What would you consider then to be success over these next few years? If it's not going to be medals, do you have something to quantify and use to measure your success as a high performance director?
Ultimately, it's high performance. The outside world judges it on medals. What we judge it on is actually the program, the structure we have around the program, and how our athletes are developing. And it's that consistency of performance and the number of athletes that we can actually transition through this program to, whether it's into a coaching position or whether it's into, we get them into education. Like we have athletes who are applying for sports grants, who are applying for college. I was helping an athlete yesterday with a CAO piece, and it's just, they're the piece that help. Investing in the people. They're the bits that will help ultimately achieve success.
How are you fixed for Tokyo then? What is the story? I presume you have to operate with full steam ahead. This thing is going to happen mentality.
We've full focus on preparing here in the gym, being ready when the opportunity arises to go back to the Olympic qualifier. I know the qualifier got cancelled last Friday. Mm-hmm. So we're aware that we're not going to London now to resume the forced qualification tournament, but we can't control that, so we don't worry about it. We await the information from the Boxing Task Force and the IOC, and when that information comes in, we'll start to focus on what we need to do to be ready for that tournament. The Olympic Games, I believe, will happen. It's a lot easier for that to take place. Otherwise, it's full focus on training.
What is training at the moment for those who aren't qualified? Is it in full camp despite the maybe lack of uncertainty about when events might actually happen?
It's full camp. We're full training. Guys were on track this morning in the National Indoor Arena. They were doing, I think they were doing 3 800s this morning, which is it's a lot more enjoyable to watch than it is to do.
What does that involve?
It involves running hard for 800 meters. You're trying to get it under a certain time. Each guy has their own. Each athlete has their own set time that they're trying to break.
So it's 800 meters, break for a couple of seconds. 800 meters, break. 800 meters. And how long is the break?
Not long enough.
And who is outperforming the rest at the moment? Without giving, you can give a name away when it's for positive reasons.
You're trying to get me into trouble here now. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me into trouble. It's, do you know what? They've all got their own individual pieces that they like. Sure. That they work on. Our bigger guys obviously wouldn't be as mobile as some of our smaller athletes. You have the likes of Kelly Harrington, Aidan Walsh. Aidan Walsh is a bit like I think he's a bit of a greyhound inside of him. He's probably the fastest runner and consistently fast runner that I've seen. He could be a cross country runner. It could be anything he wants. To be fair, he's got great ability, both in the ring and outside of it. So we've a great bunch at the moment, and given everything that's going on, they're in a really good place, and that's important that we take care of our guys, and that we look after them.
Can I ask you then, in an overall sense of where Irish boxing is at, Bernard, about that balance between the amateur ranks and the elite boxers and professional boxing at the moment? Where is that scale at the moment? Are you finding it easier for boxers to stay in the Irish elite system, or are you really feeling that you're clinging on to them to try and stop them going pro at the moment?
It's the big challenge, it's not really with this group. It's, so clubs are closed down, so athletes are starting to, look at it, there's been no boxing for the last 12 months nationally. They barely have access to gyms, and they're looking. It's hard for young amateur athletes to look at it and say, where's the future for me? When are the clubs going to open back up? When am I going to be able to start competing on a national level? When am I going to start going into tournaments? When am I going to get the opportunity to go to a European juniors or a European youths or a world youths or under 22 competition? And those athletes are looking and you're saying, okay, professional boxing is ongoing, albeit at a limited level, but they're seeing it on TV. And it's hard to stop those athletes jumping over, because they don't have that outlet at the moment. And it's hugely challenging. And I know the government is trying to do what it can to protect people in the current war. And that's extremely difficult. But I think we need to get a balance there, especially for young people. I think sport is a great way of not just keeping you physically fit, but your mental health is hugely important in all of this as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, the fact that there's actually an outlet to partake in your sport at the moment. I mean, like, it comes down to that quite often, I'd imagine, as a young boxer. Just one other thing I wanted to ask you about, just from that standpoint of the young professionals that are operating in Ireland at the moment. I know you haven't seen Monday night's Panorama documentary yet, but Barry McGuigan was one of the big figures who came on to speak about this, and he spoke about how he's losing a lot of fighters to MTK. Basically, they're being undercut. Would that concern you if you were a young boxer at the moment, the fact that the options are narrowing with regards to picking your promotion or picking the management team who are going to represent you, that it is narrowing towards MTK all the time?
I think it's hugely important that the people who are in power, those who run the world federations, be it amateur and professional, I think it's important that they set out very clear rules and regulations that protect and safeguard all our young athletes coming through, and our older athletes, the guys who are in professional, and that there's very clear guidance on making sure that what they earn is theirs, making sure that their careers are being well looked after.
How important is it that someone like Barry McGuigan is coming out and talking about this subject and talking about the associations to MTK?
Come here, I think with the Barry situation, I know he went through a recent court case himself. So like Barry's was a phenomenal boxer himself, and actually was a huge inspiration to me. I remember having a photograph with him when I was 5 years of age in a gym in Dublin, and saying I wanted to be like him someday and be champion of the world. It took me a little while to get there, but it's I'm a slow learner, let's put it that way. But we've got some great individuals coming through in this country, in terms of athletes, in terms of performances, in terms of ability to become world champions, and we want to make sure that they're being guided in their careers in the right way.
Just a reminder that Indeed has teamed up with the Olympic Federation to launch the Indeed Career Coach Programme, which is aiming to help athletes to plan for life beyond sport. So the program's been developed with the support of the Olympic Federation of Ireland, the Sport Ireland Institute, and High Performance Director of the IABA, Bernard Dunne, who you have been listening to for the last little while. Bernard, a pleasure as ever. Best of luck with the preparations for hopefully a number of Olympic qualifiers over the next little while. Thanks a million.
Please God, all be okay.